And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the 8 o'clock spot live here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and Twitter account. As always, I'm your host / judge / moderator, Bryson Carver. Very, very excited for today's show, episode 23, and we have got a ton to talk about regarding particularly the NFL divisional round playoffs. I know there's a lot going on in the NBA in the last 24 hours, but it pales in comparison to what was a fantastic divisional weekend. Starting with our first guest, the guy who's come oh so close his last few appearances on the 8 o'clock spot to getting the W. Maybe he breaks over the top tonight. Tim Barnard, who just debuted the Boston Sports Summit podcast on the Gryd Network. My man Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, debuted my first episode last week. Got my next one tomorrow, 7 p.m. Got a lot to talk about. Bruins are on a hot streak. Celtics are winning. They had a bad loss against Denver on Friday. But again, right now, outside of the Patriots and Red Sox, everything's turning up Boston.
It's usually how it's gone historically, especially in the 21st century for the city of Boston. Finally, or I shouldn't say finally, next to our points leader. And you have all the right to gloat right now, Mike Guido, because you are numero uno in the Gryd Network leaderboard. We'll show it once we get through our guests. But Mike, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm going to come into tonight, Bryson, nice and relaxed. It's no disrespect to Tim and it's no disrespect to AJ. I love you guys both, but you guys are nowhere near my point total. So right now my lead is currently safe. So I'm going to go into this nice and relaxed. I'm going to throw out some stuff that maybe I don't really mean or anything like that. I'm kidding. But just some stuff to ruffle some feathers maybe, just because my lead is so far protected right now.
This feels like when it's like in November and you've got a 3-game lead. The division with 6 to go. Like, you got to be careful somebody doesn't catch up on you, but you want to obviously build your lead. And finally, one of the 3 co-hosts of the Cowboys CanFan podcast and a multi-time competitor on the 8 o'clock spot. I believe the only CanFan member to not win the 8 o'clock spot. Maybe that changes tonight. Alex Johnson, AJ of the Cowboys CanFan podcast. AJ, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Looking to get that victory, but geez, Mike comes out of the gate. He's throwing elbows already. I mean, jeez.
Hey, I said I loved you, AJ. I'm not trying to throw blows here.
That's great. It'll be a fun show tonight. And a guy who competed last week, EJ Savage, one of the newest members of the Gryd Network, Boys in the Zone. He says, I have to root for my guy AJ. Sorry, Tim and Mike. So obviously he's going to pull for the Cowboy fan, not the Patriots fan, and not the, evidently, as we've come to know lately, the Bills fan. But we'll get into more of that later in the show. We'll get into more of that, Mike. I mean, you are a New York guy, so I'm just saying. We'll get into more of that later in the show. But let's look at our leaderboard. There you are at the top, obviously. If we can pull it out, there it is. Mike Guido's on top with a pretty comfortable lead, 15 points of the second place, Barry Grant Jr., followed by Alfred Parsar Jr., Devin Nettles, Dalton Brown, who won last week, John Rivera, Dylan Lima, Adam Bessie, Ryan Flowers, Anth Bessie, Tim Barnard, there you are, AJ, Eric Van Linen, and EJ Savage, who joined the leaderboard last week. So a ton to get into in the world of sports. We're going to start, however, with what was a fantastic divisional weekend, and it started really primarily with the Kansas City Chiefs, or I should say ended in dramatic fashion with the Kansas City Chiefs knocking out the Buffalo Bills 27-24 in what was Allen versus Mahomes Part 3. The comparisons to the Brady Manning gets on my nerves and frankly is insulting to Brady and Manning. We can get to that later, but both quarterbacks play well. Mahomes accounted for 2 touchdowns, Allen with 3. Neither turned the football over, but ultimately the Chiefs, due to some better situations, play and obviously a miss toward the end of the game by Tyler Bass, the Bills kicker, were able to pull out and advance to their 6th consecutive AFC title game, which is incredible. That's Mahomes. That's the worst season for Mahomes and Andy Reid, even if they lose on Sunday. So I'll start with you, Tim. For the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, did Buffalo miss their best opportunity at knocking off the Chiefs?
So that's, I feel like, a loaded question because you could go, yes, I think that's the most obvious answer, but I'm going to go no. Because Buffalo was missing all-pro linebacker Matt Milano. Taylor Rapp was out due to his calf injury, and they were missing their second-best receiver, Gabe Davis, who's just a big body and could have done so much against that Kansas City defense. But he wasn't there. He was hurt. And then when you look at Kansas City, though, their whole offense is kind of a joke. Especially when it comes to receivers. Again, I know Mahomes, Kelsey, but if you look at really the rest of them, the receivers, who do they have? Marquez Valdes-Scantling? At best, he's a 3rd receiver, and he's arguably their best receiver. That's kind of true wide receiver. Excuse me. I want to make sure I get that right. True wide receiver. Kelsey looks like he's fallen off because he's got drops galore ever since he, met Taylor Swift for the very first time. And the one sneaky thing we all have to factor in here is the fact that Mike Florio believes that the Chiefs are monitoring the fact that Andy Reid might retire. Now, whether they go out on top or not, Mike Florio has said the Chiefs are preparing for Andy Reid to retire. They're not. It's not a done deal. He's obviously said, I'm not even thinking about it, obviously. But it's out there. It's legitimate news. It's not some rumor mill from a no-name. It's Mike Florio. So with Andy Reid possibly leaving, what is Mahomes going to look like? What is this Chiefs offense going to look like? And if you want to talk about the free agency, that's a joke. T. Higgins is probably the best receiver. He's going to get franchise tagged. Michael Pittman is number 2, Mike Evans. But again, there's going to be a bidding war for all these guys. At the end of the day, I think Buffalo still has a chance in the future
10 seconds, Tim.
With Mahomes at quarterback.
Yeah, and that's no question. And that's obviously, listen, Andy Reid, we know has been the key, one of the key components, obviously, of this Chiefs run dynasty, whatever you want to call it. And listen, he's one of the great play callers in the game. We obviously have seen the Chiefs have kind of been able to flip a switch in the playoffs, which we've seen many great teams do, kind of have subpar regular seasons by their standards. And all of a sudden, once, in their case, January rolls around, they look like a different football team, particularly on the opposite side of the ball. Tim, I'm going to give you a good take. I think the point about the Andy Reid aspect is very, very interesting regarding hey, you lose that guy. Maybe did they bring back Bieniemy? Maybe did they bring back another guy tied to the coaching tree of Coach Reid, potentially, who knows? But we know he's the guy that sort of makes everything run. As great as Mahomes is, and he's an all-timer, Kelsey, that's the guy who helps put them in the best positions to be successful. So, Tim, I'm going to give you a good take. To Mike Guido, did the Buffalo Bills miss their biggest opportunity to knock off the Chiefs in the playoffs?
No, I don't think so. And I'm pretty sure that you yourself could have expected that I was going to go there, just for the fact that I love Josh Allen. But, here's the thing. There are so many people that say right now that, well, if you can't, I think it was even Nick Wright that said, if you can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs now, when is anybody ever going to be able to beat them with the lackluster offense that they have? You got to keep in mind, this might be the worst Chiefs offense under Patrick Mahomes, but this was also a worse Bills team that we saw from last year. So I think that both teams kind of took a step down from where they were last year. The Bills are incredibly banged up. They had lost guys like Tremaine Edmonds in free agency. Obviously, on the offensive side of the football for Buffalo, I mean, if you didn't see a difference between what Stephon Diggs was last year and what he is this year, I mean, you weren't paying attention. Gabe Davis was a non-factor in the offense a lot of weeks for Buffalo. There was a clear digression in Buffalo's roster this year. So here's the thing. I don't think that you can ever rule out a player of Josh Allen's caliber in games like these, despite the track record. I understand that he hasn't beaten Mahomes in the playoffs yet. I understand all that. But also keep this factor in mind as well. The more time goes on, and this applies for both of them, but especially for Mahomes, they're already having trouble offensively. What happens when Mahomes is up for another contract? When he has to get paid again, that roster is going to keep debilitating even further. So, no, I don't think that this was that they missed their best chance. I think this was a decent chance to beat them. But Kansas City and Buffalo, I think, were very evenly matched here. So, no, I would not say that this is that they missed their chance and that it won't happen in the future.
Yeah, it's fair. And one thing, too, the only thing I would push back, I do agree that the wide receiver production was not what it was last year with the Buffalo Bills, but the run game was night and day. What James Cook did with that offensive line was able to do was, certainly. And so you give a ton of credit to Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, coming in place of Ken Dorsey and doing what he did and be able to a certain degree, sort of minimize Josh Allen's mistakes in this win streak leading up to the Kansas City game. Mike Guido, I'm going to give you a good take. I think the point about Kansas City, listen, the more you pay your quarterback, the more you're going to struggle to kind of bring in guys. We saw the Rams. I don't think it'll ever get this bad with Kansas City, but last year the Rams were an absolute disaster because they didn't have a lot of picks. They had to pay a lot of guys, Stafford, etc. So, you'll go through lump years, but this is certainly, again, the low point of the Chiefs era under Patrick Mahomes from an offensive standpoint. So it's like, if you can't get them, then it is going to be tough. And I would also counter that as expensive as Josh gets, it's going to be hard for the Bills to bring in talent. They're going to have to hit on some draft picks, which the Chiefs, to their credit, looks like they've done with Rashee Rice. We'll see if they continue moving forward. AJ, finally with you, did the Bills miss their best opportunity to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs?
Well, I am cheating a little. I have the 2024 NFL script, just a rough draft. So, but I won't spoil it for you guys. No, I mean, I think I misunderstood the question, but I'll give you two answers. The first one I thought was it their best chance to date? And I said yes. I think like this was their best chance, even with all the points that were made here, strictly due because of how I think the Chiefs offense has been like its least powerful over the last, say, 4 or 5 years. But to answer your question, I am in line with everyone else. I do think that I don't think that this is going to be the best chance that this iteration of the Bills has to beat this iteration that the Chiefs have. They're both going to be running into an off season with high quarterback contracts. I think the Chiefs have a little bit of a better cap situation. However, they'll do their magic in the offseason. I don't really expect that to be an issue. What I like about the Bills moving forward is the offense that they have, that young offense, some nice pieces in running back Cook. What's the wide receiver's name? Khalil Shakir. Whatever. And then two guys who I really was hoping the Cowboys were going to take in the draft is Dalton Kincaid, tight end, and the offensive guard, Torrance. So I think they have some good pieces there. They have something like 21 or so free agents exiting. I don't believe that any of them are big major pieces. It looks like a lot on defense. So, but the major pieces on that offense are going to be there in Diggs and Allen. So, I mean, contracts, they'll figure that out. And I think it is only going to get tougher for the Chiefs that their luck has to run out at some point, right? I mean,
sure. Yeah, no question about that. And that's a great point, is that Buffalo was able to, again, hit on some of these draft picks. They're not paying James Cook a lot of money. Kincaid had a solid rookie year, really started to come on at the end of the year and really kind of took that tight end number one job away from Dawson Knox. And I'm completely with you. I loved his talent out of Utah, loved his upside. I think he's going to be a very, very good player in the league. And Khalil Shakir, he really burned my Steelers a couple weeks ago in that playoff game, and he showed a tremendous ability with Gabe Davis out of the lineup toward the end of this year. And listen, he was, from a production standpoint, he was better than Stephon Diggs. I mean, then that's going to be something the Bills got to look into, and whether or not they're going to keep him, move him, only time will tell in that regard. So, AJ, I'm going to give you as well a good take, 100 points here, tie everybody up at 100 points apiece as we move into the second round. Obviously, everybody, feel free to chime in the comment section if you disagree, agree, or you just want to chime into the conversation. Feel free in the comment section on YouTube. Let's move into, I apologize to the audience. I did not show our first round rules, and that is on me, the host / judge / moderator. I should get decked 100 points for whenever I'm a guest sometime in the future. So I'm already at minus 100. I'm playing behind the 8 ball. But basically, it's 200 for, we just show it. 200 points for a great take, 100 for a good take, 50 for a bad or okay take, nothing for a bad take. So it gets doubled in the second round. Okay, it goes to 400 for a great take, 200 for a good take, 100 for an okay take. And again, you come home empty-handed with 0 points if you have a bad take. And I don't think we have had a bad take so far on the 8 o'clock spot. So certainly we hope to not make dubious history today. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, who knocked off the Green Bay Packers in what was closer than many expected. The Niners were almost double-digit favorites, about 9.5. And Green Bay, Jordan Love was able to jump out to a lead early, but due to a missed field goal by Anders Carlson and due to a game-winning drive led by Brock Purdy, the Niners were able to pull out 24-21. The Niners defense also was able to get a couple of takeaways by Dre Greenlaw. Purdy struggled throughout the vast majority of the day. His pass rating was kind of about around the mid to low 80s, and then once he got to the game-winning drive, it was almost 100. So Purdy certainly stepped his game up on that last drive. So I will ask you first, Mike Guido, despite the 3 quarters of bad play, were you impressed with Brock Purdy's, performance in totality because of the game-winning drive?
No, I don't think I was impressed with it in totality. I don't think that you can say that, because really, I mean, despite the fact of how well Green Bay was playing going into that game, they 7-2 in their last 9. They had just dismantled the Cowboys at home. Like, despite the fact of how well they were playing, that doesn't change the fact that Green Bay's defense was pretty bad all year. You know what I mean? Like, there really isn't very much of an excuse to play poorly against that defense. I said the same thing the week before that about Dak Prescott. So there really wasn't an excuse for that. So in totality, no. However, here's the thing that you have to really keep in mind about this. This is the kind of mental fortitude that people talk about when it comes to Brock Purdy, right? He's not over the moon talented. He doesn't have crazy arm strength. He's not crazy accurate. He's not a super mobile guy. He is a very game manager looking quarterback on a week-to-week basis. He just is. And just like anybody else, he has his super high weeks and he has his super low weeks. This is kind of who he is. I think Brock Purdy is just kind of one of these average guys that's elevated by the players around him. But the fact that he can still keep his composure and remain in the game, not fall back, he's got a strong chin, stay in the game in the fourth quarter when you're down. That's something that I think San Francisco can value in Brock Purdy, despite the lack of overwhelming talent. So in totality, no, I'm not impressed. But as far as the grand scheme of things is concerned, at the end of the day, if you're winning the football game, if he comes through in the moments that matter, that's the part I think that's important for San Francisco.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been a Brock Purdy believer for a while now, even last season when he came in for Jimmy Garoppolo and led them to that win streak going into the NFC title game, is that when things are going well, we see his numbers. He led the league in passer rating. He's in the MVP discussion going into Christmas Day when they played the Ravens and got throttled. But can he play from behind? We saw the loss to Cleveland. We saw it to Minnesota. We saw it to Cincinnati, that when adverse circumstances, when somebody goes down, Deebo Samuel went down in this game for the 49ers, can he be able to mentally recover? And that's, I think you're spot on, Mike. And part of the reason I'm going to give you a great take here with the 500 points is the fact that, listen, it was not going terribly well for him. It was his worst game, the Ravens game aside, probably 2 or 3 months, and to be able to keep his composure and lead them to that game on a drive was highly impressive, even without Deebo Samuel in not the best conditions weather-wise. But again, a guy of Purdy's stature, that's going to be something that comes into the picture. To you, AJ, were you impressed with Brock Purdy's performance despite the 3 quarters of kind of mid-play and then that last drive to win the game? Were you impressed with Brock Purdy, AJ?
I mean, I'm always impressed I've been impressed with Brock Purdy since what he's done with his career here in the 49ers, being the Mr. Irrelevant pick. Not prick. That's horribly mean of me to say. I agree. He handles pressure so well. I think the thing that impressed me is that it was more CMC. He put the ball in CMC's hands on that 12-play drive, and he didn't lose the game for them. Is that something to be impressed about? I mean, because of his selection in the draft, it kind of like if he was undrafted, I might have been less impressed. But there's just that Mr. Irrelevant moniker hanging over him. So I think a little bit of that is just the marketing. But overall, I mean, I can't say that I was impressed with him in that game. I think he did enough not to lose it. And should I be impressed by CMC? No, but that's who I think stole the show for me. He's just doing what he always does, but still he finds a way to impress me. So kind of a change to the answer there of who I'm impressed about. But that's what stood out to me on that drive.
Well, we know that there's obviously some keys to that Niners offense, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, but see, Christian McCaffrey, this Niners offense was always really good, really talented, and obviously ran the football very well with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays, that West Coast offense, but you had a guy, Christian McCaffrey's Hall of Fame level talent. It just takes the offense to a different level and obviously makes Brock Purdy's job a lot easier. And some of those plays to get them down to that scoring drive, obviously McCaffrey win the game winner in, but a couple dump offs to McCaffrey, couple runs in these second and third and short situations obviously made an impact. And like you said, that's kind of what Mike was alluding to, game manager. Like the one thing you asked him to do is to not lose the game with that kind of roster, that kind of talent. Just don't screw things up. I do think they trust him. If you watch the film, if you look at some of the advanced analytics, they do trust him more in terms of throwing outside the numbers than they trusted Garoppolo. But nonetheless, it's still sort of that same sort of moniker. But AJ, I'm going to give you a good take for this segment. I think you bring great points regarding McCaffrey and regarding Purdy's importance in the offense. There's no question about that. Finally, to you, Tim, despite the 3 quarters of kind of shaky play, with that last drive in the fourth quarter to win it for the Niners, were you impressed by Brock Purdy?
I will say it showed me a lot about who Brock Purdy is. And I mean that from probably the best way possible. I'm not saying that he's, this, stellar quarterback or he's this bum quarterback. I think really, you have to take into account, obviously, the rain was pouring in San Francisco. What do you expect? And, after that first drive, he had the glove on, he took it off. He's trying to figure out the ball. Deebo Samuel gets hurt. The one thing the one area that really impressed me the most was the fact that, his game is his biggest asset, which is keep it simple and don't turn the ball over. Don't give your opponent extra possessions. And he didn't do that. Even in a slick field with a slick ball, he still found a way to get the ball to where it needed to go. One of the biggest plays, from that final drive was that 3rd and 5, Brandon Ayuk over the middle. That was a dime. I forget who the Green Bay defender was that was on Ayuk, but he was right on his back. Purdy put that ball exactly where it needed to be. And because of that, that's what continued the drive and what was able to lead San Francisco to that victory. And so that's why, you know what? Yes, because I think we realize who Brock Purdy is in this game, like right here. That's why I'm impressed, because now we know definitively who he is. He can make those throws even in sloppy conditions, and he will not. Now, of course, he will eventually turn the ball, but I'm saying as a whole, he keeps it simple and he doesn't give the opponent any extra possessions.
As good as AJ's take was, as great as Mike's was, I'm going to give Tim the greatest of all. I can't give you extra points for that, but that was I never thought about it from that perspective of we saw the best and the worst of Brock Purdy, and that sort of encapsulated who he is. He does really struggle to play from behind, but in this game, and this, by the way, this was something we hadn't seen from him, as I detailed with the Browns, Vikings, and Bengals game when they had that 3-game losing streak in October, is the ability to kind of not necessarily put the team on your back, but to maintain your composure and to still play within the offense, still trust the offense and trust what you're doing. And like you said, that really was the play of the game, was the throw to Ayuk, because if it's incomplete, it's 4th down, 3 minutes left. They don't convert there. Green Bay probably bleeds some clock with Aaron Jones and maybe comes out with the W there. But a great take by Tim. Looks like we got some comments up in here. Looks like we got some CanFan comments. So AJ is appreciating EJ for the support. And Adam Bessie from the Cowboys CanFan podcast and a multi-time contestant, former champion of the 8 o'clock spot. He says, crack him if you got him. Go AJ. CanFan represent, baby. Absolutely. Listen, I know y'all have gone through a lot over the last couple of weeks with the playoff loss, but shout out to y'all for continuing to put out some fantastic content. So listen, y'all do a fantastic job for the network, and we are very, very lucky to have you as well as everybody else. To the 3rd and final round involving the 3 original contestants. Obviously, we'll have the top 2 point getters at the end. A great take gives you 800 points. A good take gives you 400. An okay take gives you 200 points. And a bad take, again, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. And how about those Detroit Lions getting to their first NFC title game since 1991? I believe only their 2nd in the Super Bowl era, in this run in Detroit, in the Super Bowl era since the merger in 1970. I mean, listen, I picked them to get to the NFC title game before the season, not to brag or anything. So I'm feeling pretty good about Detroit. But listen, they were able to make some moves over the last few years through the trade market, free agency. They aced their draft picks over the last 3 years. Brad Holmes, their GM, deserves a ton of credit. But they've got a tall task. We just talked about San Francisco, that roster, all those all-star type of players that they've got over there. So I'll start with you, AJ. Can the Lions go on the road to San Francisco and get the W in the NFC title game to get to play the Niners in the NFC title game, win, and get to the Super Bowl? Are the Lions capable of doing such a thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've loved that offense all season, partially because I ended up picking up all of those key positions in a fantasy football team. So, they're very, very necessary for me to get to 3rd place and lose out before the championship. But that being said, I think they got a lot of really exciting pieces on that offense. Of course, where they lack comparatively, and not only on the team, but with all the other remaining teams, is they probably have the worst defense of the group if you're going to match them all up. That's a problem traditionally in the NFL, right? You need a strong defense and also the ability to score enough points if you do have a kind of lacking offense. That being said, I think the Lions are going to run into a 49ers team that is going to want to bounce back win. It's going to be a tough fight. And And so I expect the 49ers to come out and play with that offense that we've seen throughout the season. I know that the Lions can keep up with them, but just in a vacuum. But I just don't think at home and with the 49ers coming off of just a very close victory that they're going to want to or that they're going to have enough to pull it off. If you're going to make a bet, I say bet on the Lions, but I think the 49ers are going to win.
Well, now that you venture into the betting realm, I checked the other day and I saw a San Francisco favored -7.5, and I'm looking right now. It's come down to 7. So I think people are sort of talking like, hey, roster wise, I mean, the Niners are probably better, but it's not by like just this massive gap as we've seen with them playing a lot of the teams they play this year. So the Lions are the side, whether you take them to win or not. The Lions are the side this week in Vegas. Just a little betting advice from your man who doesn't bet, Bryson Carver. But AJ, I'm going to give you a good take here, get you to 700 points at the end. Listen, you make that's the defense is going to be kind of their bugaboo if they lose. I think we would all agree that's probably the reason they do lose is because, listen, their offense can score on virtually anybody. We saw Tampa Bay's defense that has had a lot of success, and they put 31 points up seemingly with ease against that Buccaneers defense with a lot of great players over there, particularly Levante David. So good take by AJ. To you, Tim, can the Detroit Lions go to San Francisco and win the NFC title game?
Now, I'm going to say this. First of all, I had Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown in my fantasy team, and I won. So there's that. Thank you, guys. But I do want to say, ultimately, as much as I'm rooting for the Lions and love the story with Detroit and all that, I got to go no. I got to go with the fact that the 49ers are just too talented on defense, on offense. And the Lions, as talented as they are, and has as much as they've hit on those draft picks, like Bryson, you alluded to, with Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, the Lions defense has given up the most yards per game this postseason amongst all remaining teams. And when you add all postseason teams, they're third to last. So they've allowed 416 and a half yards per game, again, which, like I said, ranks ahead of Philly and Green Bay. They've allowed the most pass yards of any team. It's supposed to be a beautiful day in San Francisco. So with that sloppy weather that Brock Purdy couldn't perform in, now he's going to have beautiful weather. Of course, Deebo Samuel, if he's able to play, that just adds another dynamic to that offense. But if he's not, I still trust Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle to get the job done. It is a high-octane offense that the Niners have. And, the one other thing I want to bring up is, again, as much as I'm rooting for them and want them to win, the Lions organization has like a curse over them. Ever since the NFL championship days where, they won 4 NFL championships. Since the Super Bowl era, they've only been to the NFC Championship game once, and that was with Barry Sanders, and that team was average and ran into a brick wall that was the Washington Redskins at the time. And then you had Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson, pissed away their careers. You pissed away the rest of Barry Sanders' career, who
10 seconds, Tim.
In my opinion, the greatest running back of all time. So, yeah, I think there's an organizational curse. As much as I'm rooting for them, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, you bring it. By the way, I do agree. I think Barry Sanders is the greatest running back ever. He was unreal. But it seemed like I remember, AJ, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like Adam or somebody pointed out the curse of Bobby Lane is actually what it is. As far as I know, the story goes, he was traded or went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he proclaimed that this organization would never win again without me. And that was the 50s, and here we are sitting in 2024, seeing if the Lions can break this curse. But Tim, I'm going to give you a good take here. Get you to 900 points. I think you bring up some really good points about, like, listen, the defense. You got like Kansas City, great defense. Baltimore, San Francisco, just doesn't seem like one, especially on the road. Like you said, much better conditions than what we saw on Saturday night in the Bay Area. So that doesn't look like that's going to be something that plagues particularly Brock Purdy. The Deebo Samuel injury is massive. If he's not able to go, obviously that helps the Lions' chances. But if he's ready to go and the Niners are at full strength, that's going to be really tough. So, Tim, I'm going to give you a good take. Finally, to you, Mike Guido, can the Detroit Lions go to San Francisco and get a W over the mighty 49ers?
They absolutely can, but I'm a little bit more cut and dry on this. I really think that it is completely contingent on whether or not Deebo Samuel plays or not. Like that is the deciding factor for me. If Deebo Samuel plays, San Francisco will win. If Deebo Samuel doesn't play, Detroit wins. That's the way that I look at this game. Because, listen, and we saw it during the regular season. San Francisco was a different football team when Deebo Samuel didn't play. They were almost non-competitive on the offensive side of the football. There's just something about what Deebo Samuel brings to that offense where, whether it's deception or just anything, multiple ways that you can use, and we all know who Deebo Samuel is, something lacked in that offense. Here's the thing of why I think Detroit matches up pretty well. As far as the rosters are concerned, I think that Detroit and San Francisco are relatively close. I think San Francisco's roster is better, but Detroit is in a place right now where, you know, they're matching up with San Francisco where their weaknesses are virtually the same, right? San Francisco's weakness, you can kind of say, well, and especially with the injury to Tano Ufunga, I mean, their secondary is, you know, there's a little bit to be desired there. It's the same thing with Detroit. Despite the fact of Brian Branch's great play, their corners struggle. Cam Sutton, Kendall Vildor both struggle mightily in a lot of games. However, here's the part that I love. Detroit all season long, this was the second best rushing defense in the NFL. They only gave up like 88 yards a game on the ground through the entire season. So if there's a team that can limit Christian McCaffrey on the ground, the Detroit Lions are one of those teams. So I think that there definitely is a matchup there. But like I said, Bryson, this is very cut and dry for me. If Deebo Samuel plays,
10 seconds, Mike.
San Francisco will win. If he doesn't play, I think Detroit goes to the Super Bowl.
And he's listen, you said he's a key member, and we saw what the Niners offense, and listen, he went out early in the game, so we saw what was about as close to a full game sample size as what you could, and we saw with some of those games he missed, again, that 3-game losing streak for San Francisco. So, Mike, Guido, I'm going to give you a good take here to tie you with Tim Barnard, so you both are headed to the final round. AJ, I'm sorry, my man, you were not able to make it to the final round this go around. It didn't come around for you, my man. The CanFan, Anthony and Adam are still going to have that over you right now. But listen, a great opportunity to come back next time, and we'll see you at the end of the show, my man. All right. Now, what's understood doesn't need to be said. Looks like we got some comments here. Adam Bessie says Purdy still had issues with pressure, and we saw some bad throws, and that's something else too. He's more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's something that he has struggled with. Our guy Barry Grant Jr. Still a distant second place behind Mike Guido. The Lions' physicality will give the 49ers fits. That's the thing. They can play, like you said, their ability to stop the run. That's something that could plague them. Adam is not happy. He says, "Boo, BS, rigged." So he's taking up for his guy AJ. Listen, it's he's close. It's just the margins are so thin, and he just wasn't able to come through. But
protect his family up there in Canada. It's all about family up there.
It's all about family. It's all about the CanFan guys. Obviously, check that out on YouTube.
Canadian guys stick together.
That's absolutely for sure. All right, let's go to our final round rules. And listen, folks, it's win or go home. Okay, this is just like the playoffs. It's you win, you advance, you lose, and you're done. Or this is like our Super Bowl, because if you win, you're the champion. If you lose, you are the runner-up. The winner gets 10,000 points. It's the great equalizer in this 8:00 spot tournament. The loser comes home empty-handed with 0 points. So the first game that was played over the weekend was our only blowout, which is the Baltimore Ravens knocking out the Houston Texans in blowout fashion, doing so by a final score of 34-10. Props to Houston, vastly exceeded expectations. They got a bright future with C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, but ultimately Baltimore is the better team. They've been the best team in the league from start to finish. Lamar Jackson is almost assured to win MVP, and by the way, all he did was throw for 150, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 100 and 2 more touchdowns. So and in the second half, he was nothing short of marvelous, about as close to perfect as you can be. So I'll start with you, Tim. If Lamar Jackson leads the Ravens to a W over the mighty Kansas City Chiefs, who've had this great run so far, given previous playoff struggles for Lamar, do you think the doubters and the haters, the naysayers, whatever word you want to use, do you think they're silenced now if Lamar can get to the Ravens to the Super Bowl on Sunday?
As much as I would love to say yes to this, I have to say no. And part of the reason why I'm saying that is because people are just going to talk about how the defense carried Lamar, because let's go back in time to 2013 and the Ravens winning, against the 49ers, right? Everyone was, granted, that defense was great and definitely helped carry them, but it was playoff Joe Flacco, that really carried that team. And people kept, again, playoff Joe. That was the nickname. So with this team, though, it's been all the defense. It's, the fact that, excuse me, my dog's trying to bite my ankle off. The defense during the regular season ranked 4th in yards allowed and was 1st in opponent scoring, sacks, and turnovers. 2 of the biggest factors, your sacks and turnovers, to help you win games. And the Ravens pass game ranked 21st during the regular season. And so because of that, as much as I want, Lamar, because I like Lamar, I think he's a great player. But if we're going to, continue with the Lamar hate, he's not a great quarterback. He's a great runner, but he's not a great quarterback. And that's really where it stems from. And, if he can up those numbers, he doesn't have to be, top 5, but if he can get top 10, in passing yards and all that, then yeah, I'm right here willing to, put that to bed. But the fact that they're 21st and in passing yards, I still think people are going to harp on defense, and the fact that Lamar cannot become a true pocket passer. That's really where I think that hate comes from, no matter if they win this game or not.
Yeah, and that's I don't know if I totally just agree about he's not a great quarterback. Pro Football Focus had him as the best quarterback thrown outside the pocket, and he has improved inside the pocket. But those numbers are totally fair, and obviously the Ravens are a team that's been, since Lamar's been there, kind of predicated on the run game. And that defense has been nothing short of fantastic. So to you now, Mike, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Tim?
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think he's an awful quarterback. I'm just saying based on that number is that he's not like a traditional pocket passer. That's kind of what I was going for.
Sure. No, that's totally fair. And that's not, he's not the pocket passer that guys like Burrow, or obviously Jared Goff, when he has a clean pocket, might be the best pocket passer on the NFL, along with Joe Burrow. I'll go to you, Mike Guido. I know you are a big time Lamar guy. You and I kind of been on this Lamar thing for a while. Would, though, Lamar quiet the naysayers, the doubters, the haters, whatever word you want to use, would he quiet them with the win on Sunday to get them to the Super Bowl?
I mean, that's kind of a tough question, only because I think it depends on how he plays in the game. Right? Like if Lamar Jackson throws 3 interceptions and his passer rating is in the 70s, then I would say probably not. But at the same time, he also is beating the mighty Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs. So maybe yes. But here's really how I look at this. If it were up to me and my opinion ruled all in the world, I would say absolutely yes, without a doubt. And in fact, I honestly would think that potentially it should be put to bed now. Because here's the fact of the matter. I disagree with Tim, and I understand where Tim is coming from, but this was as good of a season that Lamar Jackson has had from the pocket in his entire career. I think this is who he is. I mean, he's completing 67% of his throws. He threw for like 3,700 yards. This is among the best touchdown to interception ratios that he's had in his entire career. This was actually, in my mind, one of the least impressive running years that he's had. Only 5 touchdowns on the ground this year for 800 or so yards. And he really made this offense into a really balanced attack. Now, listen, they run the football better than they throw. They're the best running football team in the league. They're like 21st in passing yards. But that's just because of the way they're built. The thing with Lamar Jackson that he needed to work on for the last 5 or 6 years since he got drafted was his efficiency. He needed to become more efficient from the pocket. He needed to turn the ball over less, and that was really it. So I do think it depends on how he plays in the game, but the reality is that if you're not buying into the fact that Lamar Jackson is great now, then I really just don't know if you're paying attention. The guy is just incredible at football. He knows how to build a sustainable offense, maintain a sustainable offense, and if he can continue to throw the ball the way that he's throwing the football right now, then he's going to become one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the league as well. So I would say, yes, the naysayers can go F themselves to this point.
Yeah, and that's something with Lamar Jackson that as always, we always know he was a great runner, and his ability to throw from the pocket has been something that's come into question. But the first couple of years of his career, he's improved drastically. And listen, not like anybody needs to be having to make a case for Lamar as the MVP. It looks all but inevitable he's going to win the award. I think the real question is he going to do it unanimously again? But the question for Lamar Jackson is what did the Ravens look like without him? Well, last year we saw, and even the year before that we saw the Ravens offense with a capable backup in Tyler Huntley absolutely crumble into a million pieces. Meanwhile, he's in the best team in the AFC and are favored to beat the defending champs on Sunday. So we'll see what happens. Both of you made fantastic cases. Thank you. Both did a great job, but there can be only one winner, and his name is Mike Guido. Mike Guido is once again the champion of the 8 o'clock spot live here on the Gryd Network. Michael, what's up?
I just want to apologize to Tim. I really do. I see the look on Tim's face.
I feel bad too, Mike.
My dog was eating my friggin' ankle during my biggest take of the night. During the biggest take of the night, my dog is eating my ankle. I'm sorry.
You gotta overcome injuries.
The dog. Tim was getting rushed by the passer and he crumbled. No, I'm kidding. But the dog needs to know what time it is. Listen, I'm very happy about this. I love Tim. I think he's a phenomenal addition to the Gryd. I think the Boston Sports Summit is going to be a growing phenomenon in that space. But again, Tim, I think Devin Nettles hasn't really been on the show in a while, Bryson, but Tim Barnard might have to become Mr. Runner-Up at this point.
It's 5 straight appearances. Ever since I've been on the show, I've made the championship every time. 4 straight. I'm the Bills. I'm the Buffalo Bills.
I was about to say you pull.
He's always the bridesmaid and never the bride. It's unbelievable. It's upsetting. It really is.
It hurt me to do that to you, Tim, but I just thought Mike made this the slightly better case. And what I always do at the end is I bring the person who did not make the final round back in, so we can bring AJ back in the mix here. AJ, did I make the correct decision in picking Mike Guido over Tim?
I'm going to just plead the fifth here, I think. And
I didn't ask you to plead the fifth. I want your opinion, AJ.
No, you know what? The hardest thing for me is both of these fine-looking gentlemen speak very well, and they probably have watched a lot more other teams than me. I'm kind of locked in on the Cowboys when they play, and I don't watch a lot else. So no excuses on my end. I was very impressed by both contestants, and for me, I'm going to keep kicking the tires. I'll keep coming back. I'll be learning what works and what doesn't, and one day might just be a solo show, but I will take home that victory.
Hey, you know what you are? You're the tortoise. The tortoise in the hare. Like the tortoise just keeps trudging and trudging, gets slowly, climbs up the list, and all of a sudden you're going to break through.
Wins the race.
Slow and steady wins the race, and eventually, AJ, I promise you, buddy, you are going to break through. Your day is coming in a very good way. That is all the time we have for tonight's episode. What's that, AJ?
I was going to say it is, but I don't want you to give it to me. I want to earn it. Okay.
Oh, you are going to earn it. Nothing is given. Everything is earned here on the 8 o'clock spot. And that is all we have. The time we have for tonight's show. Be sure to check out next week's episode of the 8 o'clock spot on Tuesday night, live on the Gryd Network at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Gryd's Twitter and YouTube channels. Shout out to Tim. Shout out to AJ. Both put up great cases. And shout out to the defending champion. And we know Barry is, and everybody's going to hear all about it. Mike Guido just continued to extend his lead, pulling up a Patrick Mahomes, really. Like everybody else is kind of the Josh Allen, and Mike Guido's the Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's what you could
say, Bryson. I might be the Patrick Mahomes of the 8 o'clock spot. I'm like Tom Brady.
Well, the run has to end eventually. The run has to end eventually, though, Guido. It's got to end eventually. But listen, today it continues. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out.
Peace.